Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Well, we're sadly we're coming up on time again. Now, I'm happy to keep going, and we can carve it up. But I'm going to leave it up to you.
If we can keep going. I can go. Let me take a peek here. I have. I have till 2:00, so we can keep going.
You're a scholar and a gentleman. I appreciate it, man. Really, thanks for being so generous. Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit, because I really like to get into things like, policy and procedure, right? So it's one thing to kind of document the technical side of any business. And since it's MSP, we'll talk about that. But then as you start bringing in people like your sales and your marketing and your HR and all these different places, having how you document and track and everything, I'd like to get into that. So if we could, starting from that for that MSP, how do you guys handle your documentation on the MSP side?
Yeah, so I've personally completely made a 180 shift on my thought and actions and thought process around documenting our processes and procedures. So of course, documentation of a client's network, the passwords, the knowledge base articles, like all that stuff was always important. But like internally documenting our, certain things within the business, I had the mindset like, hey, if you're a professional, you should be able to know certain things. And then people weren't getting the results. They were, disjointed. So now I've kind of learned that I've gone to the other side where it's like everything is documented. And we also do videos. That's the other thing. We like to do short videos, 1 to 5 minutes max. If it needs to be longer than 5, chop it up in chunks, right? So like, what is a technology business plan? Why do we do technology business plans? Who's part of a technology business plan? How do you start the conversation on a technology business plan? How do you create the article? How do you close it? What fact-finding questions do you ask? Those are all videos. That's an entire series of training for somebody. Nice. And then not only do we have the written SOPs, we have the training, so that they come through. It's like almost like taking a university course on, and they might have already worked at a company that did a certain way, but they're now going to learn like how we do it, how we approach it, and the expectations we have for delivery and that. And that's for engineering, for cybersecurity, for, the different types of consulting, account management, sales, everything.
You guys do that in, what do you like, SharePoint, where you just put the SOP in there and then you put the videos in as well? Is that what you guys
do? We've actually been uploading the videos on Lightspeed TV.
Okay.
Pretty affordable. And people can like log in there. You can track, do assignments, track the training, all that kind of thing. So that's worked really nice. So that's kind of where we're keeping it. The SOPs, though, we keep on our SharePoint, and we then have like a master list that like breaks it all down with like links. So because once you start building a lot, you're like, oh man, like, did we create one for that one or not? Or where's it at? And
right.
You have to kind of get really organized with it. Otherwise, you're going to start duplicating work, or you create it and nobody looks at it, that kind of thing.
Now, was this something that you pushed out from you and were like, okay, fine, I'm just going to start writing the SOPs? Or did you push it out to all the heads of each, department and say, all right, write your SOP?
So good question. So we kind of identified which SOPs, we had to take it in bite-sized chunks. So we said, okay, which SOPs do we want created this quarter? And then they were assigned out. And then that was a task that each manager or person had to do by the end of the quarter to actually produce it. That's kind of how we started. Now, certain ones I wanted to write myself, just because I wanted to set like the golden template, and then I could train the leaders, and leaders can that. And other ones, I wanted them to do it, and maybe I take a look at it. Now, as we've matured, we actually have like a SOP document writer in-house that does it. And the way that they do it is because they may not know the technical process. So, like, let's say you're the manager of the the IT services team, Matt. Like, so she would sit down with you and say, okay, we're going to, you know, I don't know, get any topic you can think
Whatever.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
gonna handle a ticket?
The
Whatever. Yeah.
workflow of when an engineer gets a procurement request, and it goes to the procurement team, and like
Right.
you'll explain how the process should be. She'll be recording the video, the conversation, just like now. Then she'll take that information, transcribe it, and put it into our SOP template, and kind of like try and get it right based on what you said. If there's screenshots or whatever you might have showed them when we were on the thing together. Now you, Matt, are like so busy, you don't have a lot of time to write this stuff. You're just explaining, telling me like you would an employee. And if I was the writer, I would be taking that and putting that into the template. And then when I got it back, like, hey, Matt, here's the SOP I wrote. Take a look at it, and you're like, oh, this is good. Or, hey, there's a few things missing. Add this, add this, add that. Then I do another revision till it's finalized. It gets signed off on. Now it joins the library.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. So is that like a full-time person, or is that somebody?
Now it's a full-time person. Yeah, it's
awesome.
a full-time person. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. So then those SOPs, are those now living documents that people like, hey, they work out of that and they kind of like, okay, so much as so to say, hey, this is the sales script, right? Of getting down to the nitty gritty. So that's in the SOP, grab your sales script for their call. This is what you can do, and you tweak it however you want, but you put the basic scripts in there.
Yes, so level. You got the scripts there, and if you have to kind of hold people accountable to reading and using them, otherwise they won't.
Yeah.
So, and I like to differentiate in the SOP when there's a script, because there's a lot of scripts. We use a lot of scripts. Which scripts are suggestions or like an example versus I'm not asking you to ask
verbatim. Yeah.
You will ask these questions now, right? Like, or the phone script, the perfect example. Like, you pick up the phone, you'll notice really well put together companies, everybody answers the phone exactly the same. And on companies that are kind of wild, one person will say, hey, it's how are you doing today? Another person says, thank you for calling Fit Solutions. The next one says hello. And you're like, what? Hello? I just, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, did I call someone snow? Like, what am I calling? So for example, like the phone script is not a suggestion. Like, that needs to be verbatim, right? Because we're doing that across the organization. Whereas like a fact-finding script is not optional, but it is you can put it in your own words as long as you're asking the same question.
Right. Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, let's get down to some other procedures then. So for your let's just go RMM. What are you guys? Who do you guys use for your RMM? Are you?
So we're using Automate, ConnectWise Automate right now. I have mixed feelings about it, probably like everybody on their RMM. When we started out, we were on Continuum, and then the engineers made a really big push. They wanted the ConnectWise Automate because they felt that there was more things that they could do with scripting and so on. I don't know if we ever even fully leveraged all the capability on that. Probably not. And if it was even worth switching, now ConnectWise owns Automate, they own Continuum, and now they have their new one. I forgot what it's even called that's coming out. So I think we're going to check out their new one and see what that's about. Maybe consider moving at some point.
Well, and I ask because it ties so nicely into the SOP. I mean, you document so much as to this is the way you do it, and then a transition like RMM, so many things have to change, right? I mean, you got to go through all of those things and say, oh well, it's no longer here. You don't do this. You go to this place and do that. That becomes a big lift moving from one RMM to another, which I could tell from your face was not enjoyable. So
Oh
trying
man,
to
and now, yeah. I mean, even when we did that lift, years ago, it was years ago. That was a hard lift at that time. Now it's like such a scary lift. So, man, you got to be.
yeah.
I almost think as a business owner, you should be involved in the RMM decision. And even though if you're like, oh, I'm now past that, because the cost and effort and that is not an
It's
easy.
major.
Yeah,
No, it's
sets the
really
course
not.
for a long time.
Yeah. And we are tiny in comparison to you. And every time it's like, you know, the pain's got to be enough to warrant it. Fine.
Yeah.
And so you do, but boy, the larger you get, the bigger that pain's got to be.
Oh
So
yeah, it's the same with the PSA system and like the pain to move. And look, you're not going to get one there's not one out there. I don't think that's like really great. But you're going to have to pick like what's going to work the best for you.
yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. So I don't know if you've heard of Electric AI. I think I mentioned them earlier too, but
Yeah.
they're really an interesting group because supposedly, their whole thing they built themselves, right? So they had VC, funding from the get. So it was
Hmm.
their whole idea was, hey, look, we're going to kind of automate a whole bunch of this stuff, make it really cool for the users to be able to, put stuff in. Um, not to ding on them at all, but the reality is it, as just to your point of no RMM is perfect, they built their own with all the cash that they needed to do it and all the resources, and they're not that happy with the result, and neither are
Oh,
neither are the end users. So it's
is
tough.
Electric AI, so are they also doing services as well and they built their own RMM?
Yeah, so it's proprietary. So it's their own internal RMM that they
Oh man.
use. So yeah, and
Yeah,
the
that's kind of
experience is different.
that's a crazy undertaking. Like, I would
It is.
almost like I can't speak to them, but if I was the head of that ship, I would either pick services or I'd become an RMM company. Like, if you try
Yep.
to do both, that's like saying
Yeah.
that's it's crazy. It's like, oh, I'm going to be the construction company and I'm going to make the power tools, and you're like, what? Like, power
Yeah.
tool manufacturing is a completely different industry than construction. Like, I know construction users, you need it and use it, but I mean, that's a
Yeah.
crazy undertaking.
Yeah, no, and it's a slick looking group, and their proposition was basically that they were slicker because they had their own proprietary way. And uh, at the end of the day, I don't. Well, it's not true, right? And that's what it's kind of come out to be. But they used a lot of really good marketing dollars to build a to build up that image. They churned through clients, pretty quickly. But I think they're a really great example of what good marketing kind of can be, and the
Yeah.
power of that. Because at the end of the day, it a lot of people will take the approach of it doesn't matter what you're selling, you've got to get in front of people and you've got to sell them. So you've got to create the right image. It doesn't matter. And true, back to your point of, it's not a secret sauce so much, but it's putting in the work and configuring it all to deliver an excellent product and service, right? And that's the challenging part, which I think they missed with the really cool RMM. They focused on how can we be a cool new tech startup, and they raised a ton of money, and they make a lot, but it's just a totally different way of going about it. But
Yeah.
to your point, it's still not perfect. And sure, they have bigger challenges than we have
Yeah.
because they're manufacturing their own power tools while they're
Yeah.
trying to construct the buildings, right? So
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, man, the company I worked at before, all covered. They did something similar. So they created their own. They created their own ticketing PSA. I don't remember RMM was part of it or not, but definitely all the ticketing, knowledge base articles, project management, everything. They called it Go Base. And like, I mean, once again, it was like there was a lot of complaints about Go Base. But at the same time, like they had put so much work. Like them leaving Go Base was like never going to happen. It's impossible. So all they could do is keep putting more money into development of it, really.
Yep.
At that.
Crazy. All right.
Yeah.
So kind of trying, continue it along those same lines. So in terms of what's your basic offering? Let's go with, how do you package it? I know some people like to have, a good, better, best. Some people, like to have, just kind of one size fits. Some people are completely open and they want to structure it to their individual client. What kind of approach do you guys take?
Yeah, so we have, I'll kind of go through like the packages that we kind of do. So on the cybersecurity front, we have our 24/7 cybersecurity team as a service, essentially. And like SOC as a service, we talked about how our structure is a little different with team structure. So they get that 24/7 team, but it is a SOC, our SOC. And but instead of the tiers, they get their team, and that team is comprised of analysts, comprised of cybersecurity engineer to kind of handle the SIEM tools, the SOAR tools, do the proactive like rule sets and adjustments. I mean, there's a lot of work into it, just like any tool. Then we have like kind of that vCISO level person / account manager that depending on the size of the organization. So if it's a smaller organization, they're going to have more of an account manager, and the CISO is going to vCISO is going to come in and on those consulting, like when we're doing the quarterlies or the monthlies. Whereas if we had a larger organization, they have a pretty robust internal IT, their CIO or their IT director might be having more regular conversations with like a virtual CISO on all kinds of things that they want to bounce off of them. So that's kind of like how that's structured. Now we know based on averages, I shouldn't say we know, but based on the averages of customers, we kind of know how many incidents per endpoint we get. We know how long it takes on average to investigate an incident, and we're constantly looking at those numbers. So if a company comes to us and they say, hey, we have, 500 workstations here, and we have a IT infrastructure, 3 locations and, 25 servers, and this is what we have for the cloud, we'll have a really good idea of how many incidents and how many hours it's really going to take us at the end of it to manage the tools, do all the investigations, do the response, the escalations, and then work with their team on like the strategy stuff, like looking at the progress calls every week, the monthly touch base, the quarterly planning. So we kind of have that as like our cybersecurity package, and then based on endpoint, that's how we're pricing it out.
Nice.
Yeah. So and then if it's a penetration test and they want to like bolt it on, or if it's separate, we can see kind of, we'll scope it out. How many hours are we going to put towards penetration testing, project management? And then that really is more of a project than an ongoing agreement. But some of our clients are doing it on the regular now. So because you really, as a best practice, need it kind of on an annual basis. And so then we build it in into, we can add it in as a line item onto the agreement instead of paying as a one-time project. They could pay for it monthly and then we schedule it out. So that's kind of what we're doing there. And when they compare the cost of even one full-time analyst and the tools together, it doesn't make sense, right? Because we can provide them a whole turnkey team that does it all the time, all the processes built out, all the incident handling built out, all of and 24/7, right?
Yeah.
You have one guy in house doing the cyber. He's
gotta sleep.
Yeah, and he goes on vacation, or he gets sick, or he's got to sleep, or he needs a weekend, like all that kind of stuff. So that's a that package just makes a lot of sense for organizations, and they would have to be extremely large, and that the volume of how many incidents we're handling are so large that it would make sense to build out their own 24/7 cyber team. So
So
that's
on your
there.
SOC side, not to cut you
Yeah,
off there, but
please.
on your SOC side, your clients, because you mentioned the smaller and the larger,
Mhm.
as a general rule, what are you seeing in terms of like your smaller and then your larger? What's that range there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the least that we can even service a client is probably around around $2,500 a month,
Hmm.
right? Even if you're a small customer. So like once you have the tools and see, even if you're a small customer, we might not have that many incidents, but we're
Right.
still touching base every week. We're still going over the metrics. We're still doing consulting with you. So we know how many hours we're going to allocate just for those basic tasks.
Yep.
We're going to have to manage the tool set. So like I think the if you're small, you're going to start at 2,500, and then it'll just go on up beyond that. But
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, even if you're small, like you know, at that cost, if you just buy your own SIEM tool, no configuration, nobody to manage it, nobody to do anything, you're already in that price category. So it's already a
Oh yeah.
great deal at that size if you have the need.
No, 100%. I mean, and you can't hire somebody for $2,500 to do anything other than maybe get you
Yeah, you
coffee,
can't even. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
They're
Exactly.
certainly not giving you all of that. So the value proposition's clearly there. And so would you say kind of your smallest clients, I guess, do you have smaller clients who are doing both, doing your
Yeah,
SOC
yeah,
and your
definitely, and
managed
cyber.
services?
So yeah, we'll have both. They'll do IT with us and cyber. They're completely different teams, and so there's really no overlap there from a technical perspective. They're for legal reasons separate entities as well.
Yep.
So fit cybersecurity, fit solutions, but they work together all the time. So if
Yeah.
you know they'll whichever cyber team is dedicated to that account will also know which IT team is dedicated to their IT account, and then they're escalating tickets and working back and forth on resolutions. So there's uh, like an indicator that you have a good cybersecurity team is that they're communicating to you a lot. Now, the idea is not to the idea is that they're taking things off your plate. But nonetheless, I'll give you an example. If, you know, Matt, you're usually working out of this location where you're at, and then all of a sudden you log in from Miami, the cyber team doesn't necessarily, and there's, 600 employees, they don't necessarily always know if you're traveling or not. Like they can look and say, okay, well, is there two logins? Is there like an impossible authentication where he's logged in from two different cities and it's not possible? Or is there some other like weird multi-factor thing that happened? But at the end of the day, they might have to just say, hey, like, I need clarification. Is Matt moving around? Is he traveling right now? Like,
Yeah.
so if you have a sock and you have not heard a peep from them in like 3 months, I guarantee they're not doing really nothing for you.
Yeah. You know what? That's going to make for a really great clip. That whole thing. I love it. I mean, that's going to be beautiful. Okay. That's beautiful. And well said. So, well, let's switch over a little bit. Cause since they do tie in over
Yeah.
on your IT side of things
Yes.
so let's go with, I think we've already covered what kind of RMM you use, but how do you go about let's go with like your packages there. So,
Yeah.
um,
No. Great
how do you
question.
guys do that?
So yeah. So what we're doing, we have an essentials package, small business package, an unlimited package, and then an enterprise package.
Cool.
And so the essential package is basically someone that doesn't really want any hours from us. They just want tools. So they can have the essential tools. They really get no engineering support. I mean, if they want engineering support, they're going to have to pay like in blocks of hours.
Hourly rate, yep.
Right. An hourly rate that's higher. But they get the tools. And that's basically it.
Now, which tools are we talking there in your basic?
Like the RMM
your
tool.
RMM.
Yeah, the RMM tools, the
antivirus,
Sophos or whatever AV they want, or endpoint protection. We do a lot of Sophos, and then if they want the ticketing tool, they can have that as well. And you might say, well, why don't they just go get their own? Like, you still, if you buy it, like, you have minimums, more expensive. You have to configure it all to make it all work together. So a lot of times it's just easier to say, hey, like, this is what I want. This works good. Let me just pay a monthly fee and just get access to the tools. It works
Absolutely.
out well.
Plus, then they've got the access to help when they need it. So if they're like, hey, look, we don't have blocks of times with you, but you know what? We do have a need now. They've got an established relationship. They've got somebody managing their antivirus and their malware and whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you.
We can get those alerts as well, and then if we're happy to respond to them. But then it is an hourly charge, right? Exactly. So if they want us to, we could do that. They can have another nice thing about doing that is now they have some peace of mind, because if the IT person were to leave or become MIA or whatever, tragedy happened that they're unavailable, then they have someone, or maybe not even that. Maybe he wants to go on vacation. Yeah. So now he has somebody that is leveraging the same tools, acting as an extension of him. We have some familiarity with the environment. We can get in there and we can help take care of them until he comes back or they replace.
Love it. Well, I don't want to get sidetracked here, but it kind of sounds like you guys really focus on co-managed IT. Like perhaps the majority of your business is co-managed.
Well, so then we get into that, kind of gets me into the small business and more the limited. So we love co-managed IT, but it's not always. Like, a lot of times there's organizations, they don't have an IT department. It doesn't make sense. Typically, if a company is like less than 100, less than 75 people, doesn't necessarily make sense to hire a full-time person unless they just have really high demands, right? Like, we'll see like law firms sometimes might have 50 and they still have an IT person because they just want a guy sitting there that they can shoulder tap all day.
Yeah.
It's understandable. But otherwise, most of the time in that case, they're going either with a small business or unlimited. Now, the difference, there's only one difference between the small business and unlimited. And I'll tell you what's in the packages. So we have our account management time. We have our proactive time that we know we're going to be doing, like upgrades, patch management, holistic type things within the environment. We have a whole, procedure and different things we're checking backs, all that. So that's built in there. Obviously, the tool sets are built in there. And then we're doing like the technology business planning with them. So we have to write that document every quarter, maybe make revisions for them, but basically building out the roadmap, delivering that to them. And then the meeting, the participants in that meeting. So we have, I'm trying to think what else we might have in the package. But that's kind of it in the nutshell, just from the baseline that we're doing. And then you add in all of the user support. So now that's the biggest difference on the user support between the small business and the unlimited. So unlimited is unlimited of keep the lights on, essentially. So it's not unlimited projects that they like, oh, I want to do a server infrastructure upgrade. That's not unlimited, but everything to manage and maintain that environment and keep the lights on is unlimited. So they can call in many times as they need. And we have, based on how much time we spend on average per workstation, per client, we can kind of base out what the correct price for unlimited is. Now, some companies say, well, we're a small business. And that's kind of where the name comes from. They're like, we present the unlimited because we used to only give unlimited or nothing. And if you didn't want it, we wouldn't do business with it. That's kind of where it came out. And we lost some good opportunities because they wanted a foot in the, we needed a foot in the door and we weren't willing to compromise. And then we said, maybe we should start compromising, but in a different way than we thought. Like, so what we did is we said, okay, the typical, conversation, we're a small business. We don't really need that much. We say, no problem, Mr. Customer. And before that, we would have the options. We have small business options for you. And that is where we cap or limit the amount of user support hours. So the proactive hours are the same, the account management is the same, the consulting is the same, all the tool sets are the same. We cap the user support hours. Now, can they go over if they hit the cap? Of course they can. They start getting billed at a regular hourly rate versus when we build in the hours, it's a much more competitive, affordable rate because we're getting that recurring revenue and we can build off of that. So that's what we're doing for unlimited. Now the enterprise is also enterprise are only for internal IT departments. So you can kind of see, okay, now business, maybe they start off at small business, they kind of upgrade to unlimited. Now they've been growing. Now they need to internalize and bring some stuff back in house, right? And they hire an IT person. Now that's a great fit for our enterprise package. It's very much like the small business package where we limit the user response hours because we're working with sorry about that. We're working with the IT team on whatever they need to escalate or whatever they want us to work on, and they can build in more or less hours in there. And kind of the same co-managed. The licensing is just a little different. If you're like, oh, what's the difference between like small business and enterprise? Really, it's almost the same thing. Just the licensing is a little different because they need some extra licensing for the co-managed aspects. But that's pretty much it.
Love it. So a lot of people have different views on posting pricing online. So you'll see some that absolutely love it, and they do a starting at. So they'll give their pricing, at least some kind of idea. Some believe that that's shooting yourself in the foot, and they don't like it at all. Curious where you fall in this argument. What is your thought on pricing and kind of publishing it or whatever?
Yeah.
What's your thought?
So we've tried both. We at one time published pricing, and then other times we gone back and forth. Like first we didn't publish, then we did, and now we don't again. So one thing we never do is we never fluff the numbers. We always have our numbers, and they're we know what it takes to do the job right and the cost of business. Now the reason we've gone away from publishing the numbers again is we don't want to, our numbers, we do the job right? So I do not want to cut corners. Once again, not fluffing it, but I'm not going to compromise on like a customer saying, well, I don't think we need the proactive support, or let's cut out the monthly call and then we'll reduce the hours. Like, no, I need a monthly call to be successful. I need those proactive hours to be successful. If you don't believe that it takes this many hours to support your environment, let's go to a capped hour agreement and we can do that. But the price, a lot of times when we go to sell, our price is a lot more than the other quotes they're getting. And the fact of the matter is, you probably know this, there's some great MSPs out there, but for every 10 great ones, there's 1,000 sucky ones, and that's who they might be shopping. So when I see a quote, it's like, I don't want to throw, I never throw competitors under the bus, but if someone says, oh, we got the quote and they're doing everything you're doing, it's the same thing and it's half the price, I know it's impossible.
Yeah.
Their labor costs are the same as mine. Like, so either they're not going to deliver and they're over promising, or, they don't, no matter what, it's going to end up bad. I just know it, right? It's like someone
Yeah.
telling you, hey, I got, they're selling Toyotas and they're, $5,000. You're like, dude, I know it. The base Toyota is 35. It's impossible.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It is a kind of a race to the bottom. And so it's interesting to see when people do post it online. It's like, but I think this is a testament to how well you're doing communicating the value. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a huge lesson right in there, in that it's not about, providing, kind of, I don't want to say the Walmart of IT. I mean, nobody who wants to be that. You want to provide great value and protection for your clients, because at the end of the day, you just don't want to be the cheap guy out there who's shortcutting, taking all the, cutting all the corners, and then your clients are getting destroyed.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing we do. When we go to present, I hit them with price immediately. So they see all the prices and packages. And then I go into explaining like how, it fits into the businesses, the success that it has, like all of that. Because all of us have been in presentations and we're just like thinking the whole time, like, dude, what does it cost? What does it cost? What does it cost? And you're waiting for the end.
Every time. I'm like, look, let's just say I can't even like something until I know how much it is.
Dude,
just can't.
I'll tell you right away. If you, even on the fact finding, if you call me for the first time and you said, hey, like, we're having this IT struggle and we're thinking about changing a provider, and I'd be like, oh man, well, tell me what is the biggest business problem you're trying to solve right now? What's not working? What have you tried? Like, how big is your business? And then if you ask me how much it costs, I'll give you the ballpark right there. Like, say, okay, give me your workstations, give me your servers. You're like, okay, we have a couple different packages. Obviously, I need to show you what all the packages, but we have packages that start here, and then we have packages that all in up here. When would be a good time, for us to kind of show you what all the packages are and pricing. And then in that meeting, when we're actually in a presentation, I'm going to show you all the packages and pricing right immediately. And then we can kind of get into like what is in the packages, what, the success is, all that, not like give you an hour presentation and then reveal the pricing.
That's brilliant. And that's just brilliant. I don't know why everybody doesn't do that. But
yeah,
that it clearly works, right? I mean, so do you, and well, let me ask you, because a lot of times people are like, look, hit them with the big number. Then, you give them the other options and they may be shocked by the big one, and then, have something to fall back on. It doesn't seem like that's what you guys are doing. It's very, kind of transparent pricing, but by front loading the pricing, you get that question out of their head. They might be shocked by the price, but then over through the course of the conversation, it's going backwards. It's the exact opposite of what we've all experienced when you're like, oh, I love this. This sounds awesome. Oh, is this even, affordable? This is ridiculous, right? And then you find out the price at the end, good or bad, doesn't matter. That waiting is freaking ridiculous. So I love that you front loaded that. And I'm assuming you didn't always do that, right?
No, we didn't always do that. Like that was a learned behavior, right?
And
that we learned.
And the results have been spectacular, haven't they?
They've been, way better. And the community, you can have like even if you don't do business with that prospect, you're having a much more genuine conversation, because you're just getting that, they have to know the price. Like, and as long as you kind of have it like hidden, it's the conversation, there's a sense of, I don't know if it's distrust, tensity, it's tense, like, they're a lot of thoughts are going through their minds. So you just gotta answer their questions and get them the information as fast as possible.
That's awesome. Well, I know that a lot of MSPs, well, at least a lot of the smaller ones, they get so caught up on the different tools and the shiny objects and oh, this is really cool, and kind of, and really sadly get kind of stuck on that aspect of the MSP, which is all well and good. You want to offer your clients the best possible tools and solutions and provide the best service possible. So yes, but it's easy to get lost in the woods there. And so just so I think one of the big takeaways from what you were saying is really focusing more on the business aspect. It isn't, that whether it's you're a Sophos, group or a Sentinel-1 group or you're a Bitdefender group, doesn't matter, right? What really matters is the value you're adding is in the service that you're providing on top of these tools. Because like you said, people can buy the tools, right?
Exactly. People get too hung up on that. But when you hire a contractor, are you worried about if he uses like Ryobi or like whatever other drill? You're like, I don't care. Like, I want to talk about the design of my house. Like, I don't even care if you're using AutoCAD or some other thing. Like, I need results, and this is what I need. Like, maybe at a certain point, we'll talk about the marble and stuff, but it's people get so hung up in that, and they just like, and we made that mistake in the past, especially with cybersecurity. We go deep into the SIEM tool, and they're like, and then at the end of the conversation, they'd say, well, yeah, it looks good, but we're also looking at Alien Vault. And I'm like, they completely missed that we're a 24/7 cybersecurity team. And they thought we were selling them Rapid7 or Microsoft Azure Sentinel or whatever it was. I'm like, I don't really care about your tool. Like, this is what we do, right? And these are the tools we'll support and make successful, and we've had great track records with and all of that. So the tool, like, don't get into the tool conversation unless there's a very specific reason to, but and you're tying it into why they called you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what everybody misses. Like, people want to present so bad what they do, and they're missing like, hey, what Matt, what made you, give me the call today? Like, and you're telling me, and like, why do you need to solve this business problem? Like, what would that do to your business? What is, why now? What have you, what's changed? Like, when do you need to do this by? Like, what date do you need this fixed by? Like, those are the questions you need to be asking. And then all that information you gave me, my presentation on our services, I may not even tell you that we also can do procurement for you, or I might not even tell you about certain tools and things like that, because it's irrelevant to solving your problem. I'm just going to focus on, hey, this is, you told me that, XYZ happened, and this is the situation, and this is what you need solved by. Let me show you exactly how we can do that. Have you seen enough to make a decision? When would you like to get started? Here's the pricing. Let's go. And then you're like, I don't need to get into like this other stuff that like will cloud the deal and maybe add time to the equation and maybe derail it.
Yep. Well said. And I think that's such a huge lesson for, every business, right? They get so enamored with their, the tools that they're using, the products, the services, you name it. And at the end of the day, that's not what the client is, or the prospect is calling you about, or what they care about. They care about their problem and how you're going to solve it for them. That's it. Love it. Ephraim, I know we're coming up on time again, so to be respectful of your time, super appreciate it. But before we leave, can you tell everybody again where they can find out more about you? And of course, we'll put links below, but go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow our socials at, I think, Fit Solutions Incorporated on Instagram. We have a Facebook. You can follow my personal Instagram, which is King Spear, because I love to spearfish. And then our website is fitsolutions.biz. And that one, once again, has links to everything. And please follow. See what we're doing. We'd love to have you part of our power base and extend my friends.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks again. This has been fantastic. And until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.